I can see some of you joining me. So thank you for saying hi. Hi, Belinda. I can see that you have commented. So let me know if you can see me and hear me. I can make sure all the bits and pieces for the live is going okay. So I'll just wait for your comments to say hi to you. Hi, Peer Dad. Thank you for always checking things for me. So I hope you're comfortable. Grab yourself a cuppa or a water, because we're going to be talking all things holistic, particularly in communications with our pets. And I have a fun game to share with you right at the end. So hopefully you'll stay all the way. Okay. Now, if you can think about someone that you think might benefit from this Facebook Live, feel free to tag them. If you're happy to share on your timeline, that will be cool. Let me see if I can share it on my own. Let's see. The more that I can reach people to know, to encourage you guys to work with your pets, to just really pay attention to your pets and explore animal communication with them, the better. So yeah, if you can think of somebody that you'd like to tag, maybe they can watch the replay, or if you're happy to hit the share button, that will be really good as well. Think about either a group you can share this live with or your own timeline. Hi, Bettina. Good to see you. Good that you can join. Okay. Hey, Carolyn. Right. We've got a crowd, so I shall start. I don't want to keep you waiting. Okay. This has come about because I don't know about you. Let me know if you experience the same as me, at times whereby you think, what can I ask my pets? What questions can I ask them? Maybe you find that the things that you ask them are the same, or that you only think about communicating with them, or you have plenty of questions usually around something that maybe is, not so pleasant, something that's really bugging you. So it seems as if the communication is more, kind of based on the fact that there's something wrong. So hi, Leona. So where are you at in terms of asking questions with your pets? Do you find it easy? Do you always have lots of questions, or do you struggle with it? So you can write easy or struggle. Do you find it easy to ask your pets questions? Do you find it easy to think about all sorts of different topics and ways to ask them questions? Or do you find that you struggle? And even if you do find questions, you're not sure if those questions are the right ones. And maybe you don't get any answers. So are we having easy, or are we having struggle? Stella. Hi, Stella. Thank you for joining on the Facebook Live. So we're talking all things holistic when it comes to communicating with our pets. So just getting some feedback from you. Do you find it easy to ask your pets questions? Do you always have something that you want to ask them? Or do you actually think, oh, I seem to be asking them the same old thing, or I forget to ask them stuff? So let me know easy if you find it easy in the comments, or struggle. Okay, so hi, Maria. So I'll wait for some of the comments to come through. I always like to get a bit of, information about where you're at, because I like to kind of cater for what I'm about to share to suit, where you're at. So that's one of the advantages of coming live when I'm live, so that I can kind of, really guide you, look at your comments, help you along. Right. So we have a few struggles. So always good to know that you're not alone. And often we are, maybe when we learn animal communication, is this your experience as well? There seems to be these kind of set questions, such as what is your favorite activity? Where do you like to sleep? Do you enjoy your walks? You know, and after you've asked those questions, you kind of think, oh, I don't know, it feels as if like, you know, like I'm just kind of asking them these questions and I don't know what else, how else to expand it. How many of you here are looking for a deeper conversation with your pets? Something that you can actually discuss with them. I mean, is that a new concept for you in animal communication? Did you think that animal communication is mostly about asking them questions, or do you actually, you know, really get the concept that it's a two-way conversation, that animals can ask questions as well? Have you experienced your pet asking you questions? Have you noticed that I'm asking you lots of questions? Okay, so I'll catch up on a few comments and then I'm going to go into what I want to share with you. So Stella says, I'm looking after a puppy and haven't tried yet, but wonder what would be good questions to try with a pup as opposed to a dog, maybe just the same. Hey, you see, sometimes we wonder, sometimes we're like, I don't know what to ask them. Would it be the same questions? Would it be different? So we have questions around what questions to ask animals. Hi, Geeta. Hi, Kathita. So lovely that you're all joining me. And hi, Joanne. Okay, I'm going to bring up some slides. I do like to work with some slides so you get something of a visual. I'm going to go through a concept that I love to bring into my communications with my own animals. And I like to view my communications with them holistically. So I actually like to just check, does everybody here, you know, are you familiar with the term holistic? So mind, body, spirit, physical, emotional, spiritual. We're looking at the conversation as a kind of a whole conversation, not just about one aspect. So I like to bring that, you know, bring that in. So, hey, let's get into it. Okay, so holistic communications, questions for your pet. And it will be great if you stay until the end of this Facebook Live, because I want to share 2 bonus tips for communicating holistic questions with your pets. So let me ask you a couple of questions. What questions do you often ask your pets? So there's a slight difference between these 2 questions. So what questions do you often find yourself asking your pet? And then what questions do you want to ask your pet? Is there a difference for you? So, you know, we do these questionings with our pets really without thinking. So my example of what questions do I often ask my pet? I don't even think about it, but every time I walk past them, I'll say something like, are you okay? You know, is everything all right? Hope you're feeling all right. Do you want anything? Yeah. So they are almost kind of unconscious questions. Do you find that you do that as well? Do you have questions you ask your pet without even thinking about it? And they tend to be the same question. So it can also be, are you all right? Are you in pain? If I see, you know, one of my dogs is slower than he used to be, can you walk okay? So these are the questions I tend to ask often and very much without thinking. And what you may find, which is what I found, is that these are the kind of questions I don't often get an answer. All right. And perhaps it's because they are what I call passing questions. You know, I'm passing them and these questions that fall out of my mouth. and I might wait to see if I get an answer. I tend not to get an answer. So if you experience that, where you're, looking at your dog or you're looking at your cat, and then you're going, "You all right?" And you think, well, they're not really answering me. That's perfectly normal. All right. Okay. Because they're passing questions. So what about the questions you want to ask your pet? Do you have any examples you can give me? Perhaps at this point you're saying, do you know what? I don't even know what I want to ask them, which is fine. So the more you put it in the comments, the more I'll be able to kind of fine tune in what I'm about to share to help you. So you can put in the comments the questions that you often ask your pet unconsciously, and also what would be the question you want to ask your pet, but you may not know maybe how to ask it or how to phrase it. Okay, so I shall look at the comments now. So Joe says, when I pass my dogs, I'll ask, "Are you my bestest girl, boy?" But then answer yes as well. That's a really nice question. Stella, you ask, "Are you in pain?" Okay, so there's something specific you want to know. Carolyn, it's like when you see someone, you say, "How are you?" and you don't really expect an answer. Yeah. And because they are our pets, they live with us, we tend to have that kind of relationship with them. So Gita, your questions are often, or maybe the questions you want to ask is his view on life. And Joanne, you're saying, I ask one cat where another cat is. Where's your sister gone? Okay, so would this be the fact that your this other cat has been missing for some time, or is it just during the day, or they're just out and about? Carolyn, you ask about situations and experiences. And Bettina, like Gita said, on a deeper level, not just I am okay. Okay, and Katita, you're saying why they do a particular behavior. Yeah, yes, these are all the things that are really useful to access, the information and answers from our pets. Okay, Joanne, that's good. No, just during the day. So yeah, you want to know what your other cat's up to. Right, so we got a few questions here already in the comments, so keep a hold of them. So here's something slightly different. What instructions do you often give your pet? Are you aware? Perhaps some of your questions are actually instructions. What do I mean by that? So I find myself sometimes saying, wait here, or stay there, or hang on a minute. All right, hands up. How many of you say to your pets, in a minute, hold on, wait a minute? Okay, these are instructions, aren't they? How many of you do that? Okay, instructions are also kind of like a question, or rather sometimes our questions are actually instructions. Okay, so hi Angela, thank you for joining. So your question, is there anything you'd like to tell me? So what else, what instructions, so slightly different, and what instructions do you want to give your pet that you don't say unconsciously, but there is something very specific that could be happening and you want to give instructions to your pet? Okay. We have quite a few here. We have Arrow, get off that. Take care when you're out. Be kind to each other. Yeah, that's right. So these are all more to do with instructions and questions. All right, so we got, again, the collection already of the things we do say to our animals. Now, I want to bring this awareness for you about the type of questions and instructions that we have for our pets. They range from a level of curiosity to a level of concern to a level of crisis to me, I found that actually our questions and instructions tend to fall into these three categories. All right. So curious, concern, and crisis. So what I'd like you to do now is, from the questions that you've just shared, see if you can pop them in the relevant category, i.e., is it curious? Is it concern? Or is it crisis? So let me go back to some of the examples of your questions. So curious would be your question, Joanne, where you say, you know, where I asked one cat where the other cat's gone. So, you know, or where he goes during the day. So that's in the curious category. And we have, for example, take care when you're out. That would come under concern, wouldn't it? And Stella, do you need the toilet? That comes under concern. Let's see, what else do we have as examples in here? Are you in pain? Can be concern. Well, actually, are you in pain depending on where you're at with managing that pain or taking care of that pain could be crisis. Yeah. So crisis tends to be something that's you are really worried about, but you're managing it. How are you all doing being able to pop your questions into these three categories? Belinda, you got don't stalk your brother. Now, I bet you that can be concern, but that can also be in crisis depending on how it escalates. Yeah, right. So pop in the comments. Yes, if you're able to fit your questions or instructions into one of these categories. And does it start to already give you an idea of how, or rather what emphasis you have when it comes to checking in with your pets, what questions or instructions that you have for them? So Joanne, yes, you're able to put them in the categories. That's great. And Belinda can. So Geeta, you're finding that your questions are mostly concern. Okay. So what about you guys? Hang on, I'm just going to let Donnie out of the room here. Donnie, did you want to go out? Do you find that you have lots of questions in the curious, not so much in the concern, and not so much in the crisis? Or maybe you've got lots in the concern, nothing in the curious, and maybe one in the crisis. So what I'm doing here is introducing to you the fact that, you know, we have these kind of three areas that our questions tend to fall into. And then I'll show you what to do about them. Okay. Now, if you have more than one pet, you can choose, I would say, do these three areas per pet. Okay, because then you'll see, for example, you might have pet one, where you got lots of curious questions, but not so much concern and not so much crisis. You may have pet number two, where you have lots of concern, not much curious, you know, and not much crisis. So it's good exercise to do it per pet. Okay. Now, if you find that you are having more questions in crisis and concern, it may be that you are only thinking about communicating with that pet because there's lots of problems. And you may not actually have cultivated a communication relationship with your pet where you also want to find out about things that are a little bit more lighthearted, which is in the curious department. Okay. So it's giving you a way of finding out how you approach your pets as well when it comes to wanting to communicate with them. All right, so you've done this, looking at the questions you have for your pet, put the questions in the following category, and just for this session, choose one pet to kind of work with, but obviously after the live, do it for each of your animals as well, so that you get to see what your relationship communication is with them. Now we got another category. So out of your curious, concern, and crisis, see if you can slot them in either physical, emotional or mental, or spiritual. So here comes the holistic part of what I want to introduce to you when it comes to communicating questions with our pets. So let me give you some examples. So in the physical, it may be that, well, it will be about their physical well-being. It will be about their physical body, their physical experience. For example, if you had a curious question, like, is your new bed comfortable? I would say that that's under physical. You want to know how they are physically experiencing their new bed. Another question that I would pop under physical would be, when I put the harness on you, how does it feel against your body? Again, that would come under curiosity, and it would be asking them questions about their physical well-being. Then when you hiss, what are you feeling in your body? So that could be a concern, yeah? So, but it relates very much to the physical aspect. You are limping. How are you experiencing that? Now that could be concern or even crisis, but that would be a physical communication about their physical well-being. Are you all with me still? Yeah? Pop in the chat box. Pop in the comments. Yes, if I haven't lost you. Okay, cool. So then we go to the emotional or mental aspect of the holistic communication. Example, what can I do to help you relax more? So that would be very much about their emotion and their mental well-being. Now that question, interestingly enough, could also be in the physical category, because you might want to know what can you do to help them relax physically. Okay, so sometimes you can kind of interchange. So emotional, mental questions can also be around the relationships. What's your relationship with your human, family, and pet animal companions? So already you're moving into a much richer conversation. So what's your relationship with your human family or your pet animal companions? We've got a couple of answers in the comments where you're saying, you know, don't stalk, be kind to each other. So they can come under the concern, but it's very much a question around the emotional or mental well-being of your pet. Another example can be, what is it about, whatever the situation is, that you are fearful about? So that can come into the emotional and mental category. And under mental, you can have how would you like to be mentally stimulated? What do you think about the toys that you have, or the activities that we do, or the games that we play? Because you are asking them questions about them to make sure that you can find out about their mental well-being. And what worries do you carry? So that can also come into this category. And now we move into the spiritual category of the holistic communication. We can ask questions such as, what form of energetic work or healing would you like to receive? So if you are a healer, if you have interest in Reiki or spiritual healing or energy work or emotional freedom technique or cranial sacral therapy, any energetic work, any healing, you can ask a question to your pet to check on their spiritual well-being. What can you sense energetically in the room that you sleep in? That's a very fascinating question. The meaning of life, one of you have asked. I want to know what his view on life is. That would come under the spiritual aspect of the holistic communication. Do you have a message for me with regards to a specific situation? So it could be that you are looking to change jobs and you're fed up with your boss. You can actually connect in with your pet spiritually and have a spiritual communication. Now, it might be something you hadn't thought about, but because we're looking at the holistic communication, you're suddenly realizing, hang on a minute, I ask a lot of physical questions. I ask a lot of emotional questions, but I forget that there's such a thing as a spiritual question that I can ask my pet. Perhaps I don't see them as spiritual beings because my questions are so full about the concerns of their physical. Yeah, can you start to see how they're going to tie up here, right? And another example for a question to ask your pet in the spiritual category is, how do busy places affect your energy field? I mean, that's just one example. Say you go to the woods, you could say, how, when you're in the woods, how does this environment have an impact on your energy field? Who are liking these examples of questions? I hope that this is starting to help you to already become creative with the type of questions you can ask your pet. So when you look at the questions you currently have for your pet and the instructions that you give out to your pet a lot, how balanced are the topics of conversations? Is it a lot in the physical? Is it nothing in the emotional? Is it nothing in the spiritual? Or is it a lot in the spiritual, not enough in the physical, and very little in the emotional? Which one are you heavy on? So I'll be interested. So this is more about, where have you been more familiar in your conversations? Which category? Physical, emotional, or spiritual? So write down physical if you have a lot of physical questions. Write down emotional if you have a lot of emotional questions, and write down spiritual if you have a lot of spiritual questions. So what I want you to do is really be aware that if you are heavy on one topic, actually to expand, include the other categories, because then that gives it a holistic communication that your pet will really appreciate. Because our animals are not one-dimensional. Neither are they two-dimensional. They are three-dimensional. In fact, multi-dimensional, to be honest. Okay. So anyone here have physical, emotional, and spiritual? That's, you find that your topics of communications are balanced. Now, by the way, it can change, because if there is an area of concern at one point, in a period of your life, you may find that it's heavy on the one. But you know what? I want to encourage you to always have physical, emotional, and spiritual topics whenever you communicate with your pets. Okay, it's a really healthy practice to cultivate. Now, my next thing that I want to say to you is, always remember, conversation with your companions is two-way. We're so used to always asking them the question. Holistic communications work beautifully when it's both ways. That makes it, I don't know, is there such a thing as even more holistic? It makes it double holistic. if it's two-way. So what do I mean by that? It's your turn. You share and communicate with your pet something that's going on for you physically, right? You share and communicate with your pet something that's going on for you emotionally. You share and communicate with your pet something that's going on for you mentally. And you share and communicate with your pet something that's going on for you spiritually. I really want you to cultivate a two-way conversation with your pet. Okay, now I've got a couple of bonus tips to help you have clear communications using this holistic concept that I hope that you want to and feel inspired and excited to apply. The first one is choose a topic you want to share with your pet. I would encourage for this exercise to write it down. So let me choose Belinda's example, where she's got her two dogs and she has it in the concern category. She doesn't want them to stalk each other because it can move into the crisis section where they might have an argument. All right. So I would write that down. I would write down almost like a letter to both your dogs. All right. So this takes a little bit more preparation. This is not like a quick communication. This is where you're really having a holistic communication with your pet. But this is also to help you to know how to have a clear communication with them. Often we make a lot of assumptions that they just understand what we're saying. They understand the energy behind our words, but they may not necessarily have the detail. All right. So I'm going to use, like I say, an example with Belinda, who shared earlier that she didn't like or didn't want her two dogs to stalk each other or one dog to stalk the other. And so first write it down and write it like you're going to write a letter to them. Okay. Then I want you to, so this is not communicating to your animals just yet. You're just preparing. So you write down what you want to say to them. Then I want you to read it back, what you've written, and make a note of where in the conversation you can accentuate. I might not have spelt that right, but hey ho, you can accentuate the intuitive senses. Now, do you know what I mean by that? So for example, the letter that Belinda could be writing to one of her dogs that she doesn't want to stalk the other dog can be saying something along the lines of, I see that the way you're staring at my other dog, and it worries me. It makes me nervous. I'm just going to use that one sentence for the moment. So in there is just one sentence for a human being, but I want you to look at the intuitive senses that are involved in that sentence. When I see you staring at my other dog, so there you can share the visual, right? Because you've got to help your animal to reference what you are talking about. So you share the visual of your dog staring at the other dog. Then you said in the letter, when I see you staring at my other dog, I get worried. So therefore you have the intuitive senses of emotion. So you pause there and you share the emotion of concern, panic, the uh-oh, here we go again. I don't like this. Yeah. So your letter goes, when you stare at my other dog, I start to get concerned. I get a bit panicked because I don't want it to turn into a fight. So therefore you use your intuitive senses and show the case of scenario that you don't want to happen, i.e. both of them to have an argument. So in that one sentence, can you see when you use your intuitive senses as the language of your animals, you can be a lot clearer and a lot more detailed about what you are saying. Does that help? Have you thought about doing that before? Or are you just used to going, all right, I want to communicate with you about not stalking each other, because when you do, I get really worried about it. When I just say it like that to my pets, whether I'm saying it in my mind or out loud, can you see there's hardly any detail in there? But when I use the intuitive senses, sharing the visual of how I'm seeing my dog stare at the other, the worry that I feel, the panic that surges in me, and the scenario, a visual of what I don't want to happen. Okay, that is, to me, the kind of conversation our pets will appreciate, because it really helps them to, to have a, like, what are we talking about sometimes? Okay, good. I'm glad it's helping. I'm glad it's helping. So then when you're relaying it to your pet, what you're saying, take time where the senses are being activated, which will make your communication clearer and stronger for your pet to understand and appreciate, right? So a little bit of preparation, and then you can really share this with them in the way that you know will be received clearly by them, okay? Now, I want to also introduce you to another way for you to come up with questions that you might not necessarily think about, I think it's going to be a fun game. So to play with your pets. So let me share this game with you. So, earlier we had the categories. I'm going to come out of my share screen for a minute. So earlier we had the categories curious, concern, and crisis. Then we had the other categories: physical, emotional, mental, spiritual. All right. So if you happen to have a piece of paper, you can quickly grab them if you want, but you can just watch me and you can do this in your own time. Under the curious, concern, and crisis, write them on the piece of paper, tear them up in small pieces of paper, and then on each piece you can write curious, concern, crisis. You can do quite a few of them. And then get another piece of paper, tear them up in little pieces, and write on them physical, emotional, mental, and spiritual. You can do more than one. And then I haven't got fancy boxes or anything, but I just got these two bits of bag that I found. So in here are the slips of paper that says curiosity, concern, and crisis. Okay, so I did a couple of for each. And in this bag, I've got the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. Right, so here's the game. So you say to your pet, I want to ask you some questions, and I want to make sure that we're going to have some fun with it, and I want to be creative with it. I don't want to ask you all the usual questions. So let's see how it goes. So the way I do it, I hand in there, and I just connecting with them. So let me think about one of my animals. So I'm going to connect in with Ziggy, my cat. I pull one out. I got curiosity. All right, so my question is going to be a question about something I'm curious about. Now, this is such a good thing to do, because let's say I am really worried about Ziggy right now. Let's say he's unwell, and all I've been doing all week is asking questions around his health. Is he okay? And, like lots of frowny faces questions. But let's say I do this game. It means it takes me out of that, and I'm asking him questions that are creative, that brings out a different side of him. So got something curious that I want to be asking him. So now I want to make sure I'm not just stuck on my own kind of question-making formula. So out of this bag, I have the physical, the emotional, the mental, and the spiritual. What have I got? I got the physical. So I have a curious, I want to ask him something I'm curious about, and it would be about his physical well-being. So physical well-being can be about his body, it can be about his behavior. All right. So here is the question that comes to mind. I'm curious about why he goes outside, but he likes to pee indoors. So here's an outdoor cat who likes to toilet indoors. Can you see? It's making me ask a question, that's creative. I haven't thought about asking him this for ages. In fact, ever. I've just assumed that's what he does, but I have never asked him to explain it. So let's play another game. This time I want to involve you. So I'm going to pick one of this for you to come up with a question for your pet. Are you happy to play along? Okay, we'll do this for 5 minutes. Right, so this is for you and your pet. I'm going to tune into you as a collective. I can't wait to see what questions you are going to come up with. Right, here we go. Oh my goodness, it got crisis. Right, now, if you don't have a crisis right now, you can put it back in the bag, but I'm just going to, play along. So something that you are kind of in crisis about. You got to go with what you pick. This is the collective energy. Are you all in crisis about something with your pet? Which is fine. All right. What have we got? Physical. Okay. So do you have a question for your pet whereby maybe it's not obvious that you're in crisis, but it could be something that you are, one thing about us, we're pretty good as humans to preempt things that we worry about that we might push to one side. So let me see if I can come up with a question that these two categories have come up. All right. I don't have anything consciously that I feel that my animals that I want to ask about a crisis right now. However, as I've picked this, I am connecting in within myself. I have crisis thoughts. I don't have a crisis situation with my animals, but I have crisis thoughts. So Mia, my big girl, we go for many, many wood walks, and she's amazing. She'll go off, she'll run off. I don't worry about her. She always comes back. And I always have this kind of trust that she'll be okay. However, at the back of my mind, I do have this worry that what if one day she could slip because she likes to run up this, kind of slippery slope where we have an incline in the kind of, the woods that I'm in. And when it's wet, when it's raining, it kind of crosses my mind, but I haven't really asked her about it. So I worry sometimes about her physical safety. So it's an opportunity to ask her about what would she do, what would happen, what is her view about what if she was to get into a potential accident. So can you see already how this is working? Because this is actually, I hadn't thought about asking Mia this, but can you see what a useful conversation it is to have with her about that? So let's see what we've got with you guys. Stella says, what would help your pancreas condition? Yep, so that's physical and that's kind of a crisis. So Stella, with that kind of question, I would like you to offer the animal that this relates to some of the options that you can offer. Because animals may not necessarily have the answer about what would help their pancreas. So you want to give them suggestions. So you start off by saying, I'm asking you about your pancreas. So I am able to offer you nutrition support. I'm able to offer you energy work support. I'm able to offer you medical support. Which one would help your condition? So, if you give them kind of like the specifics, that would help them to answer you. All right. So, Katita, call when I call for her own safety. Yeah. So when you call her, you want her to come to you. You want to ask her about that. You want to communicate about that. So Leona says, do you have any physical concerns that you would like to talk about or need help with? So Leona, I would say that that question is too general for an animal to pinpoint, because do they really have physical concerns? Like from an animal's perspective. So do you have any physical concerns that you would like to talk about or need help with? Yeah, from my experience of asking questions, these type of questions to animals, I don't find the answers forthcoming. So I have to be more specific. So you will have your own concerns already. So you could say, maybe you give them kind of more, give them more guidance, such as any physical concerns living indoors, any physical concerns when you're outdoors, any physical concerns when you see other dogs, any physical concerns when visitors come to the house. So you want to give them more specifics, because when it's so general, animals find it hard to really understand what we're asking. Okay, so Belinda, you're good with this game. Stella, you found it helpful. All right, Joanne, you're saying, why are you so greedy? You eat your own food than everybody else's. I worry that you might put on too much weight, which can affect your joints and energy levels. So Joanne, this is where, when you write that letter, this is a much needed exercise, because there's a lot of concern in there and a lot of detail that your animal that at the moment doesn't kind of understand where you're coming from, because you know that they'll put on weight and that would be bad for them, right? So you know that, but they don't know that. So when you write the letter, accentuate the intuitive senses, okay, for each of the information that you want to pass on to them. Yes, so that comes under physical and crisis. So Geeta, you saying, for my cat with digestion problems, I ask him how different kind of food feels in his body. Gorgeous. So I would do more than how it feels in his body. I would do, what is it like to chew it? Was it like to smell it? What's the texture? How does it go down the throat? Yeah, because digestion happens in the mouth first. Does he produce enough saliva? Is he able to break down the food in his mouth? Is he chewing it properly? Because if he swallows it whole, the digestion issue is, the stomach and the intestine have got a lot more work. Okay, excellent. Right. I don't know. Shall we do another one? Let's do another one. We won't go through your questions, but I'm going to leave you some homework. So homework is you can come up with another question playing this game. All right. So your homework is, I'm going to put this back. What kind of group are we today? We're full of crisis. That was a bit of a cheating. But anyway, I'm going to pull another one. That's really funny if I get another one. Okay, we got curiosity. It must be a worried bunch, which is fair enough, which is why we need animal communication, eh? Yeah. Right, let's do this. Oh, look, we got curiosity and emotional. So something that you're curious about with your pet, about something that links with their emotional well-being. Okay, so I shall leave you with that. I would love to hear the questions that you've come up with in the comments. So keep this post thread going. I think we're going to get lots and lots and lots of creative questions. So yes, Joanne, you're right. Mercury retrograde, so much crisis. Okay, so thank you so much for joining me. If you've enjoyed this Facebook Live, give me a thumbs up, give me, a heart, give me likes, whatever. And also let me just share with you very quickly that when it is, I think it'll be the second week of June, I'm going to be launching my Pet Communication Quick Start course. And I have been doing some super new work on it. So it's going to be a new edition of the Pet Communication Quick Start course. So if you're interested also in signing up for my Quick Start course, you can pop in the comments Quick Start and I shall keep you updated. All right, so thank you everybody for joining me. It has been great to have your company. Thank you for your support and keep in touch. See you soon. Bye.